Good afternoon, Shaniqua. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to see you.
You too.
I feel like I just saw you.
Yes.
Time flies like that. So, you doing good today? How have things been for you?
Things haven't been so bad. This previous week hasn't been, as hectic as the weeks before. I think I've adjusted a little bit better this week, so all is well so far.
Okay. So you adjusted a little bit better this week. What does that look like? What does that mean?
Um, I feel like I've gotten a little bit more sleep.
Good.
Um, I think that I'm used to his schedule now at nighttime, waking up every 2 hours or so. So um, I feel like I'm a little bit more prepared going into the night with what's to be expected.
Okay.
So the nights haven't been as, I guess, like complicated, if you will.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Haven't been as complicated. You saying you're getting more sleep?
Yes.
You're saying that every 2 hours is like the routine for your sleep and your waking up?
Yeah, pretty much. Every 2 hours, he wants to feed. Sometimes every hour and a half. So when I wake up or when he's feeling a little antsy and I know he's moving around a little bit more, I just wake up, look at the clock, and I'm like, oh, it's time for him to get up. So sometimes I get up with ease, sometimes I don't, but because I know it's to be expected, I don't even trip. If you was to say that.
I like that. I like that phrase. I don't even trip. It's actually a personal favorite phrase of mine.
Yeah.
So, just to get this straight, it seems like you said that you're more prepared. It seems like you got this routine down to a science. And also, it's funny, you made a comment that you made previously regarding when you were staying in the hospital. You said that now you know what's to be expected, so it kind of makes things a little bit easier for you to handle. Is that a similar situation with the sleeping routine?
Yeah, I think that overall with my anxiety when it comes to these different situations, I go into it um the fear of the unknown, of course.
Okay.
So once you get through a situation and you're on the other side, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. So even though I know that I'm going to have many more somewhat sleepless nights or many more nights where I'm waking up and my sleep has been interrupted because I know what's to be expected and it's not the unknown anymore, my anxiety has decreased, if you would just say that. It's just been a little bit better. And like I've said in previous sessions, my husband helps out a lot. I can get some sleep during the daytime. I can get some sleep during the night if I need for him to, wake up and help out and pitch in a little bit more. Um, so that support is greatly appreciated and needed during this time. But I have been adjusting a little bit better.
Got you. Got you. That one, that's good to hear. Okay. And two, you said a lot of interesting stuff in that. It sounds like you're figuring out this adjustment phase. The whole piece about the unknown is something that really stuck out from our last session. We talked a lot about your past history of dealing with unknown situations and dealing with uncertainty. And from our last session, we walked away kind of with an awareness that when you come across the unknown is when you feel most uncomfortable and most uneasy,
Yeah.
and that's when you feel most stressed,
Right.
which could kind of lead to the anxious feelings, the anxiety, right?
Yeah,
Whether it be
definitely.
high anxiety or just uncomfortable feelings, but it leads to those type of feelings, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like we're figuring out a remedy here that the more you go through a situation, the more you know about the situation, the less uncertain it becomes for you, and then possibly the less anxious or less uneasy you feel.
Yeah, I would say that. I will also say that sometimes or with anyone or with myself, I could just speak on that. Um, even though I've come to the other side of it. Um, Sometimes I get anxious that the anxiety feelings will come again.
Hmm.
So, say for instance, if I was to, have another child, um, the anxiety all over again of what's to be expected when I go into the hospital, or what's to be expected when I go into labor, because things could somewhat be a little bit different. And I know you gave me homework last session, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to do it.
No problem.
But I kind of thought about that, and it was in my mind throughout the past week, um, regarding how I feel in those instances, and uh, it just brought me back to how the anxiety might come back if I was to go through a similar situation, even though the situation that I'm in now has gotten better, if that makes sense.
I get you. It makes sense. I'm trying to see if we're following a pattern here. More of, that you've gone through a situation successfully before. You have confidence that you can go through that situation again successfully, but it's not 100% certainty on exactly how it will go, which leaves that door open for the uncertainty, for the uncomfortable feelings, for the possible anxiety to come again in a similar situation, simply because you don't know if it's going to be exactly how it's been before.
Right. Like, I don't know if it's going to be exactly how it was before. I don't know if the outcome is going to be the same. So, because of that, the anxiety probably will start back over again. And that's usually what my fear is. Past week, like I've said before, has been fine. But with his everyday change, who knows if, the weeks will be similar to last week, or will they be similar to the weeks I've had before?
Got you. So the uncertainty of the constant change, the fact that every day brings something new, it actually sends you into a cycle of getting over the uncertainty, doing away or overcoming the anxiety feelings, and then coming right back to, okay, maybe the situation might go unplanned, or might not go how I wanted, or might not go how I prepared for it, and then we're right back to possibly feeling those anxious or uneasy feelings again, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. At least we're getting an understanding. I'm starting to see where you are. I'm glad you brought up the homework. Don't feel bad. I actually want to apologize to you. I know that last week we talked a lot in your session about how hectic your schedule has been, and the adjustment that you're going through, and just the struggle you're having with doing regular things like sleeping, eating when you want to, bathing when you want to.
Right.
So I apologize for trying to put something else on your agenda, Mom. Okay. But since you haven't done it, don't feel bad. We're gonna actually take the opportunity to go over the activity today.
Okay.
Before we get to that, I just want to make sure that we're caught up on everything from last week. Last week we also talked about your uncertainty. We talked about your husband being a big help. How is your husband? Is he doing fine?
Yeah, he's doing good. He has, a lot on his his schedule as well. So, we're working together to figure this thing out.
I understand, and that's good to hear. What about work? Are we still on maternity leave?
Yes, okay. Definitely.
So not going through that adjustment period just yet.
No.
That's a blessing. We get to take things as they come to us.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing was just talking about situations in the past where you felt that anxiety, where you felt that uncertainty from the unknown the most, and you brought up your licensure exam for social work.
Yes.
Okay. It's something that I kind of want to touch on throughout this appointment. Maybe we'll get to it in the midst of the homework assignment, but let's just see how this goes.
Okay.
So the homework assignment that I gave you as a refresher was you were to take index cards throughout the week, and when you encountered a situation that made you feel any of those uncertain feelings, any of those anxious feelings, you were to write down the emotions that you feel, write down words or phrases or even images that came to your mind. And then we were going to talk about what those images, what those thoughts and emotions were, and essentially what the circumstances are built around that. So I've done this with my clients in the past. Let's go ahead and get into this. So,
Okay.
the first step requires you to place yourself in a situation that you feel that pressure, that you feel that anxiety, that you feel that nervousness. So, I want you to close your eyes. Okay. I want you to go into your thoughts. I want you to take just a minute or two to think of a situation over this past week where you were nervous, where you were in your thoughts, where you felt the uneasiness, where you felt uncomfortable, where you felt the unknown creeping into your mind, where what may happen beginning to take an effect or have a toll on you. Can you think of any situations like that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now that you have those situations in your mind, envision the circumstances, and then think about some of the things you're telling yourself. What's going on through your mind when you're having these unknown feelings, this uncertainty, this uncomfortableness? All right. Think about one or two words. Think about any visions that come to mind, images that come to mind. Think of any songs or song lyrics that may come to mind. Anything that helps to identify what you're feeling. So take the time now to think about those words or phrases, analyze your emotions, and then once you have them down, give you a minute or two, we can discuss it further.
All right. I think I do have it.
Think you got it down, Pat?
Yes.
All right. Well, feel free to share. First of all, tell me the circumstance.
Okay. One of the main things is feeding.
Okay. Feeding.
Our feeding routine. Yes.
Feeding for your son?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about your feeding routine.
Well, like I've said in the last session, I am breastfeeding.
Okay.
So with breastfeeding, of course, um, he wants to feed a lot, and with breastfeeding, it's not just about, of course, feeding. It's about nurturing. It's about him being soothed, and he wants the comfort and all of those things. Whether he's hungry, thirsty, just wanting that comfort, like I said. So breastfeeding can just be, or could just seem like it's all day. Um, so that's been the circumstance, or and the I guess the problem with it is just the demand that it has. Um, the physical part of it on myself, if I'm not making sure I'm good physically, whether that's eating, drinking water, just making sure I'm hydrated overall, and then the mental toll that it has with him being or him wanting to be comforted, and me just wanting some sleep, or the mental toll that it could take on me as well.
So it sounds like it's an involved process. It's very demanding on both you physically and mentally.
Yes.
It also is very crucial for him. I mean, this is the way he eats, the way that he lives. So I can imagine it's very important to you for you to do this right, to get it right, and to not mess it up. Okay, so what's going through your head? Walk me through what your thoughts are during this time. When you're getting ready to breastfeed, what are you thinking to yourself?
Most times I'm thinking, okay, he's cranky. He really needs to eat. Um, and then sometimes it could be frustration, because if he is really cranky and he's crying, and he's stressed, then of course I get frustrated. Sometimes if he doesn't, as they say, latch on correctly, um, that that makes me even more frustrated, or I get cranky. Um, if I haven't had enough sleep, if I'm hungry, like I said, if I'm just in the middle of something, that will make me cranky as well. Sadness.
Okay.
Sometimes I get sad because if it's not working out perfectly, then I go into a state of sadness because I'm like, oh, well, he's gonna be upset at me for the process. Um, I get sad because I feel like I'm not doing my part as a mom, as a new mom, or as a mom altogether.
Okay.
I get sad that I possibly won't be able to do it for a long period of time, even though it's what I really want to do. And I'm sometimes I get sad that I'm not, that he's not just getting all that he should be getting from me.
Okay. So it sounds like you're very invested in how this feeding affects your son.
Yeah.
It causes sadness and frustration when you don't feel like he's getting what he needs from it.
Right.
Okay. Um, Tell me, what do you think about yourself? Like, how do you feel about yourself? What do these things, what are you saying to yourself about yourself when you feel this frustration, when you feel this sadness, when you feel like you aren't doing your part as a mom? What does that make you feel about yourself?
Um, Sometimes it can make me feel disappointed in myself. Um, yeah, I think disappointed in myself because I feel like I know that I can do it, or I know that it's things that I can do different to help the process. But then I go into, well, how am I going to do things different when things are so hectic right now? Like, how do I um, plan out how to do things in a way that benefits both of us when I have a million other things, small things that I haven't been able to grasp 100%, such as just a schedule with taking a shower, making sure he's bathed, making sure he eats every so often, making sure I eat and I'm getting the nutrition that I need to sustain feeding him, making sure I'm hydrated, making sure my household is together, making sure my mind is together, making sure um, the house is cleaned, or making sure things just don't go into, a frenzy in the house. Um, Making sure I'm keeping in contact with family and friends because, like I said before, the quarantine has kept everyone far away. So everyone is wanting pictures, wanting phone calls, wanting FaceTimes, um, just a whole bunch of other things that I have to keep in order, which may seem small, but they turn out to be big things. So it's just trying to find a balance, like I said in the last session, with everything going on, um, while also being able to just be here mentally for both of us, or just for myself, for him, and for my husband. It's a lot.
So it seems like you have a laundry list of small responsibilities and tasks coupled with the large responsibilities that you have within your household as a mother, as a wife, as a family member, as a friend. All of these things seem to funnel into this one activity of feeding your child. And that if all of this big laundry list of things are not taken care of, then feeding becomes an impossible task for you to accomplish. And then you get those feelings of sadness and frustration and uncertainty. I get that. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it is. And then I also forgot to mention the fact that with feeding also comes pumping.
Okay.
I have to pump as they say, um, um, to get food for him just in case my husband wants to feed. Um, because that's a bonding experience for my husband and the baby as well. And also, it provides me with a break sometimes that I'm also able to get if the baby wants to feed and I'm just not mentally there, or I have other things going on, or if I just want to take a nap. So, and pumping is demanding as well. So, if you couple that with everything else, and then I have to take 20 to 30 minutes out of every 3, 4 hours to pump, then that's a lot too. And it just cuts into my day. So, pumping has also been um, a little bit less. I've decreased the pumping
Okay.
because it's just another thing added to the list.
So, in decreasing the pumping, has that helped you better deal with feeding? Has that made feeding a little bit easier for you, taking that off of the list?
Not at all. It's made it actually more difficult.
Okay.
Because I've taken out the other um the other option for feeding. So now, without pumping, I don't have the extra supply that I need. That if I were to get tired and my husband was to say, hey, you can take a nap, we don't have an option to feed. And the other option would be formula. And we do have formula to feed the baby, but I'm also opposed to formula because of the way that sometimes it makes the baby feel when he's on formula. And to me, just breast milk is just much better. So sometimes my husband gets on me because I much rather do those things that kind of mentally drain me or physically drain me than to just do something that's easier that could possibly just benefit both of us, even though in my mind it's not going to benefit either one of us.
Got you. Okay. So that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. I'm sure it's a lot to experience and feel. To me, it seems like you've got your husband who you want to make sure is accommodating in this process of feeding, even though you're the one that's feeding and he's just helping. You have your son who you want to make sure is ultimately benefiting from everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said in how you feel that you have a habit of ignoring or disregarding simple things or small things that could possibly make it easier on you. But you don't want to sacrifice quality. You don't want to sacrifice doing things the right way or doing things the way that you know would benefit your son and just your mental satisfaction with how you feed.
Right. Yeah.
So it seems to me that you put a lot of things in front of your personal feelings about this process, your personal management of how you do things, the way you feel and the way you want to do things doesn't seem the top priority. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think the way I want to do things is top priority, but the the effect that it has on me, I put on the back burner, if that makes sense. Like mentally, I'm drained, so I'll put that on the back burner just to make sure what I want to do. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It sounds like when you say you put those things on the back burner, you're willing to sacrifice those things for the sake of a greater good, for the sake of the outcome that you want.
Right.
You rather have a successful feeding where the child got what he needs and your husband was able to be prepared to feed him and all these other things were taken care of in the process of feeding. If that means sacrificing a little bit of sleep, if that means sacrificing the 20 to 30 minutes out of every 3 or 4 hours, if that means pumping and feeding when you might not be mentally up to it, you're willing to sacrifice those things in order to have a successful feeding.
Yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice like my sometimes my mental and physical health in order to kind of do those things, which I know isn't good in the long run
Okay,
because mentally and physically I have to be there in order to do those things. So I'm working on
I
it.
get you. I want you to know that you are correct in saying that it's not good for you to sacrifice those things because we're people. We work very much top down in the sense of if you aren't mentally strong and if you aren't physically strong and your health isn't where it's supposed to be, who do you think is going to feel the effects of that the most?
My son.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a feeling that you know that.
Yeah.
I have a feeling like that's the whole reason why all of these things are on your list to do because you want to make sure that at the bottom line, your priority is your son and he's taken care of, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're running short on time, but I do want to take the next step of this exercise before we get out of here. So close your eyes for me one more time. In thinking about this heavy situation that you just described to me, and thinking about all of the factors that are included in this process of feeding your child something that's so essential to him, when you aren't feeling your best and don't have the best attitude toward this process, what does it say about your character? Does it make you feel a certain way about the type of person you are? Does it make you feel a certain way about the abilities you have as a mom, as a woman? What are these things saying to you about your character, your personal ability? Take a minute, think about what those messages are to you. Who am I as a mom? Who am I as a person if I'm unable to do these things? If I can't tend to my husband, if I can't take care of the other priorities that I have so that this process could be easier. If I fail at that, what does that mean about me?
I know.
Okay, please share.
Or I feel like it makes me weak.
Okay, it makes me weak.
Yeah.
Weak. Explain that a little bit more. Why weak?
Because I'm not strong. If I can't deal if well, it makes me feel weak because I feel like I am strong, but because these things have been affecting me so much that it will make me feel weak because I'm not doing as much as I know I could do. And because I'm not maybe as mentally strong as I could be or physically doing the things that I know I should do, then it'll make me feel weak.
I get you. So you're not performing up to your capabilities.
Yeah.
You're not living up to who you know you are.
Right.
Okay, and it's a sense of weakness that comes from that. So you're going through this process. You're tired. You're physically tired. You're mentally tired. You had to tend to all of these other things. You have to adjust and follow this new schedule that's very demanding on you and your entire household. And when you just aren't able to get a hold of things, you're saying to yourself, Shaniqua, you're weak. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's a very powerful statement for somebody to feel about themselves. And it's important for us to take into our mind to understand what that thought, what that feeling is, and how it affects us, and how it affects how we move from that feeling. So, the last thing I'm going to do in this exercise is I'm going to ask you about the purpose of that negative emotion, that emotion of weakness, that message to yourself that says, if I don't do this the way that I think I need to do it, then I'm weak. What purpose does that serve? The question more or less is, what is that helping you do? When you think about the laundry list of things that you have to do, when you think about how daunting this task is and how heavy this task is for you, when you tell yourself, Shaniqua, you're weak.
It to me sometimes it can go either way. Sometimes it could, the outcome or the things that could come from it would be sadness, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other side, I can get things done. Like maybe I can kind of re regain some confidence in, um, okay, you know what? No, today things gonna have to be different. Today I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna pump, I'm gonna eat breakfast. I'm gonna ask my husband for a 2 hour nap. Um, then I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna make sure that the baby is fed. I'm gonna take a shower. I might even make a store run. I'm gonna do these things because I don't want to feel weak, and I don't want this to have a major effect on my mind. So let me just restart my day and see how things go from there. So it can go either way. I can, go from sadness or have maybe some sad moments. I don't usually have a sad full day.
Mm-hmm.
I might have moments. But then it could be on the other side where it makes me um regain some strength.
Got you. So it kind of works. You can work two different ways. It can cause these negative feelings and these negative outcomes, but it can also inversely or adversely serve as a motivator. It can make you flip the switch and say, okay, I'm not going to give in to this feeling. This is not the truth about myself. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Okay, so then my next question would be, which emotion, which route do you feel like you travel more? When you have that feeling and you sit down and you're just stressed and you're frustrated with how everything is going and you haven't been able to tackle that laundry list and your son is reacting and the pressure is building and he hasn't eaten and now it's time for him to eat and you're just mentally drained because of all these other things that you weren't able to do, and you say to yourself, Shaniqua, I'm feeling weak. Which route do you go more? Does it cause that frustration and sadness more, or does it make you flip that switch more?
I would say it's about um I'm trying to think of the percentage I would give both. I would say that it might honestly just be sadness turns into the strength.
Okay.
I don't like it's like a instant sadness and then it turns into no, I can't be this way. So I think I mean I guess 50-50.
50-50. Okay. Um, let's just kind of rewind here, taking this back to the situation that you discussed last week in the session with your licensure exam. Do you think you have similar feelings of, Shaniqua, this is, you feel weak, I'm weak in this situation? Do you think you have similar emotions like that in regard to your licensure exam?
Yeah, because I know coming out of it, when you've failed something, or for me, when I failed something like the licensure exam and came so close to getting it, and the motivation that I had to take the test, and then afterwards feeling disappointed in myself becomes turns into sadness, and then I get into a state of, you know what, no, we're going to start this over again, we're going to study a little bit more, or we're going to do this, and then we're going to take it again. So yeah, it's kind of like the same type of feelings and the same cycle. Yeah.
So in that cycle, how long does it usually take you to transition from that sad feeling, that frustrated feeling, to I'm turning it around and now I'm going to get back on the horse and now I'm going to use this to motivate me to do better? Is it a long process? Is it a short process?
Oh, it's usually a short process.
Okay.
I get on myself a lot, so the sadness could last an hour or so, hour maybe.
Okay.
And then I could I could get myself up out of it a little bit more. I do have support, so um, yeah, it's not a long process at all.
Okay. How have you bounced back and got back on the horse in regards to the licensure exam? Have you gone through that cycle of the sad feelings and then coming back to it and saying, I'm gonna do better and getting back on the horse?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you gotten back on the horse, what are some of the things that you've done to motivate yourself or turn the story around? Like when that came full circle, what were you doing?
Um, well, we can go into a whole bunch.
Well, I just mean in terms of the things it takes for you to take the exam and to pass the exam to achieve the outcome that you want to achieve.
So as far as like studying and things like that,
Yeah.
so studying, sometimes I have a study partner. Sometimes I'll do study groups online. I've invested some money.
Okay.
So different things like that. I've tried different techniques.
Got you. Got you. Do you think that it can be similar things done in regards to this feeding situation? Is there support? Are there groups? Is there things that you can find that are similar to what you do with the licensure situation?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think I've done a lot of different things. I think that's sometimes, I shouldn't say what affects me, but I'm a Googler.
Okay.
Okay. I do a lot of Googling.
Okay.
And I talk to a lot of people who I know have been in a similar situation as far as the feeding. Um, I do have support, family support. Um, I'm involved in like groups, breastfeeding groups.
Okay.
I'm involved in baby groups. I do have someone I can call a lactation specialist from the hospital.
Okay.
So I do have a lot of different things that I could tap into to get that help that I need. And, I've done different things because, like I said, the last week has been a little bit better. And I think feeding has been a little bit better because I've done a little bit more research and talked to a few different people on some things that I could do differently, and I've tried those things and it has worked. So
pulling your resources, tapping into all of the help that you have, the groups and the different experts to help you with the situation. It helps the feeding or the outcome. It helps you achieve the outcome that you want to achieve, right?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, definitely.
All right. So what I want to do now, and we'll have to wrap up soon, is I want to just go in and I want to scale how you feel when that negative thought of weakness comes to mind. All right, so close your eyes for me one more time. Put yourself back in the heavy spot, the pressure spot, the time where you haven't gone to your resources and you're too tired to even think about doing the other things. When you call yourself weak, when you say, Shaniqua, I feel weak, on a scale of 1 to 10, how distressed do you feel? How stressed do you feel when that term weak comes to your mind? Scale of 1 to 10, what does weak do to your mental?
10 being the highest.
10 being the most stress, one being the least stress.
7.
7. That's pretty high. It's 70%. So you feel most stress or majority stress when that weak term comes to mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We've gone a little bit over time today. The next step in this process will be for us to develop what we call a counter dialogue, okay, or a counter strategy. What a counter strategy does is it takes the idea of that negative message of I'm weak, Shaniqua is weak, and you come up with an opposite or alternative saying or phrase that cancels out that negative feeling. And the way that we do that is we focus on the things that we discuss here in our session today. We talk about how that weak feeling usually is able to be turned around to a motivated feeling when you pull from your resources, when you do rely on the help that you have. Usually, when you give yourself some time, you say it only takes about an hour for you to regroup and recenter yourself. Um, you don't believe that that's the truth about yourself. You believe different truths about yourself. So tapping into those truths, tapping into the reality of you've done this before, and when you regroup, you can feel strong and you can feel confident in what you're doing. So the next time we meet, we're going to take these concepts and we're going to try to develop one of those counter phrases, and then we're going to take a evaluation on how stressed you feel when you use that counter.
Okay.
Does this help you? Is this going to help improve your situation? So, just to recap really quick, um, you're doing better this week in terms of your anxiety. Um, you are dealing with the new challenges. You're figuring out your schedule. You're becoming more prepared, which is helping you deal with the rigors of your routine.
Yeah.
Um, the unknown and uncertain feelings that you have are a little bit less pressure or less stressful because you're figuring this out, because you're more prepared. Um, but there is still a sense of uncertainty, which sometimes can cause that cycle of stressful feelings of uneasiness, of that discomfort you feel from the unknown. That you see it come up when you take your life history exam. You see it come up in your breastfeeding. The lack of preparation, the lack of knowing what's going to happen, or the lack of knowing if things are going to remain the same or continue to change, it causes that stress, right? Mm-hmm. But the good thing is that you don't believe the negative messages about yourself, even though they sometimes creep into your head. You know more positive things about yourself, and so when we get together next time, we can focus on those positive things and see if we can come up with a repeatable strategy that we can implement and tell ourselves and say, when you tell yourself Shaniqua is weak, we got something to fire right back at that thought.
Yeah, well, that sounds good.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna end the session here. Thank you again, Shaniqua and Baby. All right, you all have both been great, and I look forward to hearing from you next week.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right.